Good afternoon or morning, everybody, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Adrian's Weather Forecast. And I know I've been promising a better schedule for the past few months, and I've been uploading every few weeks, and that's really not the schedule I mean. I really want to start posting a few times a week now, and today is my first official day of summer, so I'm on summer break until really August, so we have nothing to worry about. So now that I have a lot less stress and just a lot more time available and on my plate, I will be posting a few times a week now. I really wouldn't promise an upload every day because I still have a life and stuff, and my life's a lot busier than when it was when I first started YouTube, when I promised a daily schedule. But I'm gonna start posting a few times a week, and since the hurricane season is just around the corner, within less than a week away, I decided that my first video back for with a better schedule will be a overall forecast on the 2022 North Atlantic hurricane season. This is not going to be an official forecast. I don't really have any maps. I'm just going to be just going over almost all the current conditions and just overall the future conditions and what they could signal, and as well what that could really mean for the hurricane season. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the forecast. So the first thing I want to go ahead and look at is the overall what NOAA has for this season, and really their forecasts for every season are starting to become very, very similar. They have 14 to 21 named storms, so a above average season. As you can tell, they have a 65% chance of this season being above normal with a 25% of near normal, so it's slightly higher than what last year had. I believe last year was like a 70% for above normal. I'm not really exactly sure if that's correct or not, but they are also predicting 6 to 10 hurricanes and 3 to 6 majors. So they have 3 to 6 majors just like last year. And I honestly think these numbers are actually pretty reasonable. I don't think it's going to be as or it's obviously not going to be as active as 2020. And it may be similar towards 2021, which 2021 I forgot how many name storms it got. I think it was like 20 something. I think I could be wrong because it's been a long time since I paid attention to tropics, since I've been kind of focusing on winter and severe weather ever since basically November and October. Um, but yeah, here's the overall numbers: 3 to 6 major hurricanes, 6 to 10 hurricanes, and name storms are 14 to 21. I think these are fairly reasonable numbers, and I do think this year will be slightly above average to moderately above average compared to normal. And I definitely think we could very well see similar activity towards last year when it comes to just the overall layout of the season, and as well kind of how it played. I don't think we're going to be seeing an insane like peak like 2020, but I think we will be seeing a reasonable amount of strong hurricanes, just like last year, like we saw Sam, and Ida, and Grace, and basically that. So again, Ida did get retired for those who don't know, but here's the overall SSTs as of yesterday on the Eastern and just the overall Central Pacific and Pacific Basin in general. So we are seeing obviously a still moderate La Nina. You can kind of see between the 3.4 region, very, very cold SSTs, about a degree or just really colder than a degree or so below average. And then you see the kind of the Nino 1+2 region, really, really cold. We're seeing around 3 degrees below average. That area has been on a cooling trend recently here, and we're starting to see kind of the typical kind of along the Central America coast, pretty warm. That doesn't really seem to signify any weakening La Nina, because that really doesn't have to do with anything with the Enzo region. This is typically always warm. That's why you kind of see the EPAC. This part of the EPAC is kind of the only part that gets somewhat active when it comes to La Nina year. You're not going to see anything too crazy in the Central Pacific or really anything too crazy. You're gonna kind of be seeing a few storms that develop for a few days and then weaken within this time of the year. And we do have two areas of interest in the EPAC as of right now. But here's the overall Pacific: very, very cold. Even a huge blob of colder and cooler water starting to make its way towards now pretty far west towards the central, almost kind of the Western Pacific, and you are seeing these really warm waters across the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea and into Australian Oceania. So we are seeing some pretty good signs as of now. Still, we're not seeing any significant warming across this bubble of cooler waters like we typically see in the spring into summer. So this is a very good sign that our La Nina is staying pretty consistent. So that would definitely help with the trade winds and the overall shear and dry air in the North Atlantic when it comes to this season, as long as it stays this pace. Here's the overall trend that we've seen in the past 7 days. Like I said, really cool trend going on here. Cooler water trend. Starting to see these waters significantly cool down across the Nino 1+2 region. And your waters have been pretty neutral across portions of the 3.4 and 4 region of the Nino region. So really pretty neutral. If anything, they've either slightly cooled or slightly warmed. And like even this cooling goes all the way over here towards kind of the portion like it's in the Central Pacific, but you're starting to see this warming trend across portions along the Philippines and Indonesia and Malaysia. Kind of that's pretty much good. You kind of want to see this when it comes to almost June. So this isn't like a March where your waters are going to stay very cold. This is almost June. Your water is staying pretty cold across from Nino 1+2 to Nino 4 region, which is very consistent. And we're seeing that within the values here. Here's your Nino 3.4 index, and it has stayed fairly consistent ever since practically March and even February. So we are staying pretty consistent. We've had a little rise in March, and that's kind of your typical change of season warming in the waters, and then it started to cool down in April. And outside to warm up a little bit more, like I said, as you get a change of season, it's going to be natural to see your waters warm. But as long as it stay below average and it covers a pretty large spread area, it's not going to significantly affect anything necessarily. But we're still at a pretty moderate La Nina at a negative 0.765. So it's practically almost a negative 0.8, which is still fairly higher end moderate La Nina. So we're not kind of just at negative 0.5. We're pretty far away from negative 0.5, and I really don't think we're going to cross that anytime soon. We may get to negative 0.5, but again, remember, if you get below negative 0.5, it has to stay at that value consistently within a few weeks to actually call it a neutral. But even in a neutral, your MJO and your Kelvin waves are going to still be fairly active. So even if we do get to a neutral somewhat midsummer or even late summer, we really shouldn't have an issue. So either way, the conditions, at least in the Pacific, are pretty favorable numbers when it comes towards a above average season in the Atlantic. But we can't just base it off that. Obviously, we have to have actual other evidence, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the video. Here's the overall. Maybe zoom in a little bit here for you guys. Here's the latest kind of Enzo Outlook here, which came out like May 23rd, something like that. So here's the overall probabilistic Enzo forecast. So obviously we have a 100% chance for La Nina between April, May, and June, because we're basically in June almost. And then your probability obviously does decrease, but it stays at a basically, let me just say the numbers here. It stays at an 87% there and a 13% chance of neutral and 0% chance of Nino. So we don't actually have a value when it comes to El Nino till June, August, September with the 2% chance. But notice how your lowest value for a La Nina probability will actually be in your peak season of hurricane season, which is August, September, and October at a 58% chance. And like I said, even if it does hit neutral, it really won't affect it because last season was practically neutral for almost the whole season. We had a fairly active season. I mean, it was pretty active. Now that I keep referring to the last year, I gotta remember how many storms were last year because I just cannot remember. So how many storms exactly did the North Atlantic, did the Atlantic get last year? Hurricane season. I need to remember this. It got 21. I knew it was 20 something. So that is 21 named storms. So that is fairly active. Again, that's 21 storms last year, and that's kind of the maximum number we have for this year. So I think last year is fairly neutral for the majority of the season. And then it's just a rise, the chance for La Nina once you get into the fall. But 87% chance, 69% chance between the kind of the I guess you could say the rising action part of the season, which is June, July, and August. So either way, we should stay at a La Nina throughout much, if not all, the season. And even if it does fall a little bit toward the neutral, probably won't be an official neutral because I doubt it'll stay consistent for that long. And here's the overall model predictions for Enzo. So these are the kind of global models actually now predicting on their own for the probabilistic, or not probabilistic, but the overall just general predictions in general, what they have. So basically here we are right here. We're basically right here this time of the year now. It's slightly behind, but you can kind of see there we are, May, June, and July. So practically although we have a few that are above negative 0.5, we know we're at negative 0.8 basically, so we know where we are. We're basically right here. That's where the majority of the models are. And as we go kind of towards June, July, and August, let me actually draw a line here of the negative 0.5. So that's kind of your neutral boundary within La Nina. So you can see the majority of them do have. Oops, I just hit something on accident. The majority of your and some models are basically still below negative 0.5 between June, July, and August. And then we start to see now them start to cross after August. Some do get it at neutral, negative 0.3, negative 0.4, something like that. But your majority stay between the next few months, and they start to split off after August. Like I said, the peak season, that will be really the only time we will probably see a transition between La Nina and neutral. It's probably gonna be a brief. I don't think we're gonna be seeing like a neutral when it comes to like by October. We may hit status of neutral maybe September for a few weeks, but I really don't think we're gonna get there necessarily. So the majority do have it below, still at a La Nina status, all the way up towards December. So that will probably be our fourth straight winter of La Nina if this were to verify. And I want to go a little bit now towards certain slides of the Enzo slides. One of my favorite things to look at here because it kind of gives you just an overall summary with very great details, and it gives those who don't really have a better understanding of how things correlate to other things and how things affect other things. I just want to, so this will be a little bit easier understanding for y'all who don't know, oh my gosh, who don't know much about tropics. I don't know why it was so hard to get that out of my mouth. But here we overall, this is one of my favorite things to look at, the tropical OLR. So OLR is practically just whether you have suppressed or you have enhanced convection. That's basically what it is. So here, for example, a negative OLR will be kind of an enhanced convection and precipitation. So basically, for example, if you have like your MJO in the Western Pacific and that general area in the Philippines, let's say that's where your MJO is, you're going to be seeing your negative OLRs there, where you have that enhanced convection, you're seeing that rising motion and lower pressure. And then in your kind of your positive OLRs, that's where you're going to be seeing that sinking air, you're going to be seeing suppressed convection, and you're going to be seeing just dry air. So it's going to be this going to be very correlated towards like MJOs or your Walker circulation. Basically, it's going to be very correlated, and this can give you a better idea where your MJOs and tropical waves are. So as you can tell, your negative OLR values here between 23rd of April and 18th of May are mainly within the kind of the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific, which is exactly where MJO is practically right now. So that kind of does correlate. That's where you're going to be seeing kind of that rising air. And then as you see in the kind of the Central and Eastern Pacific, that's exactly where you're going to be seeing kind of that suppressed convection and your positive OLR, and that practically correlates to what we're seeing right now still. So you're not going to be seeing anything too crazy going on in the EPAC right now. However, that will change as your suppressed convection does move eastward. Again, this is between 23rd of April and 18th of May, so it's not exactly like this right now, but it's pretty similar. And something also very interesting and that actually does support what we're seeing right now is you're going to be seeing at the lower level 850 millibars, you're going to be seeing your easterly wind anomalies. So you're going to be seeing kind of your easterly trade winds, which are going from east to west. So for those who don't know the Walker circulation, you kind of have kind of your easterlies down in the lower levels, and then you get your rising air, and then you have your westerlies, which go from west to east. We practically with the trade with the jet stream, and then you see your sinking air. So that's kind of how it is, your Walker circulation. So wherever you're going to be seeing wherever you see your easterly winds at the lower level, so from east to west, wherever that is going is probably, wherever these kind of airs end is probably where your MJO is. So as you can tell, we're seeing some pretty enhanced amount of easterly trade winds down here in the Central Pacific. So all kind of your all your cooler waters are moving this way, and that's why you have such a strong La Nina still, as well all of your kind of convection and all of that convection and instability and all that cooler air is moving to the west. So that's why, because of this, we are seeing our MJO right here, and that's exactly what's matching up, and that's why you're not seeing any precipitation really over here, because that's not where your rising air is. That's where kind of between the sinking and rising air. And then your sinking air will probably be down here somewhere, and your rising air is over here. And that's going to be your MJO, and that's going to be seeing your suppressed convection. And then at the upper levels, you're going to be seeing your westerly winds. So now going from west to east, and it's going to be kind of completing the overall system. So this is kind of where your MJO is going to be moving. Obviously, MJOs are easterly moving system, so they move eastwards within time every 30, 60 days. So that's where your MJO is going to start moving eastwards. So that's kind of matching up. And as well, same thing. And the upper levels, you're going to be seeing these winds go from west to east, and then eventually they will sink somewhere. So that's why ahead of your MJOs, you typically see your sinking air or your suppressed convection. And then something else I want to look at here, I don't know where, there it is. So here are your OLR anomalies again. So we're going to be seeing a lot of our drier than average conditions with your positive OLRs practically in the middle of the Pacific Ocean at 180 degrees. And that's matching up with what we're seeing right now. We are seeing your practically dry air, and that's exactly what we just saw in the last slide right here. That kind of matches up. As you can tell, at 180 degrees, you're seeing your negative, you're seeing your positive OLRs, pretty strong positive OLRs, and that kind of matches up here. And then you can kind of see within 120 degrees east, you are seeing kind of your what are the conditions in the blue shading, and that's exactly what you're seeing right there. That's where you're going to be seeing your rising air and your enhanced convection, which all matches up. So I kind of wanted to give you an explanation of what I was saying. So you're going to be seeing kind of your you're going to be seeing your easterlies, east to west. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. Except this is our MJO. It's actually over here, not in the Indian Ocean, but whatever. It kind of still applies. East to west, easterlies at the lower levels. You get your rising upward motion there, your convection and instability. And then you go from west to east in your westerlies, and then you get your downward motion. That's exactly what's happening here, except basically today, like right now, it's basically like this. You're kind of seeing your easterlies this way. You're seeing your rising motion somewhat near Indonesia. And then you're seeing your rising motion, your westerlies, and then you're seeing your sinking motion in practically the same spot and around 108 degrees. So pretty interesting fact there. So right now our MJO is looking pretty favorable or pretty unfavorable for the Central Pacific and Eastern Pacific. However, we are kind of right on the edge of our suppressed convection moving further eastward, so the Eastern Pacific could get interesting within the next week or two. Here's something else I want to show you guys is the overall VPUs, which is basically your potential vorticity, or basically, yeah, it's your potential vorticity. And in your blues, you're going to be seeing your rising motion, and in your yellows and oranges, you're going to be seeing your sinking motion. So at 200, this is 208 millibar winds, basically. So as well, this year we're going to be seeing, in the blues, you are going to be seeing your upper divergence and lower convergence. And here you're going to be seeing lower divergence, so that's going to be applying towards high pressures and sinking motion. So that's why we're going to be seeing pretty unfavorable conditions currently right now. However, like I said, our suppressed convection, our suppressed motions are moving further eastward. So that's why the Eastern Pacific is starting to get more active right now. That's why you have two AOIs. And the Atlantic Ocean won't be having anything interesting within the next maybe week and a half to 2 weeks. So I don't think we'll get anything interesting, anything named or anything tropical depression, anything of that kind, till maybe the second week of June. Because as MJO moves further eastward, our suppressed convection and our higher pressures and higher trade winds will be moving further eastward. So that's why we're going to be seeing pretty dead North Atlantic for the next week and a half or so. In the Eastern Pacific, again, that suppressed convection is moving further east, so you guys will start to get more involved, and you really won't be within the MJO, but you will start to see your basically lower level divergence, and you're gonna stop seeing your upper level convergence. And again, right now the MJO is looking pretty good for the Western Pacific. You can kind of see that's where your MJO is basically. With that really significant rising air and upper level divergence, and you can kind of see it slowly making its way eastward. So at some point, it'll make its way towards the basically Papua New Guinea area and that general vicinity. And here's the overall. You can kind of see this at 200 and millibars zonal wind anomalies. You can see in the blues and your blues at 200, you're going to be seeing your westerly winds here, so west to east. It's exactly what we're seeing right now at 120. You can kind of see this is generally where Indonesia is and like that. Actually, no, I think 120. I think Indonesia like right here. The other side 120. I can check right here. It's right here. So I still don't know my coordinates the best. So 120, yeah, it's right here. That's where Indonesia is, right on 120. So you can see 120 at 200 millibars. You are seeing your westerly winds from west to east. So you are seeing kind of that general typical MJO flow there. And then you see 120 west. You're gonna be seeing kind of opposite of that in 120 west. Let's see where 120 west is. 120 west. So at this time, you can kind of see it's kind of in the middle of that suppressed convection there. So that kind of all adds up. So looking pretty good right now for the Western Pacific. Let's now go ahead and get a look here at the overall 40-day forecast. And this is a little bit old, so we're going to get to today. So you can kind of see by 30th of May, you're seeing you're gonna start seeing that MJ really make its way now towards the Western Pacific, and this is old. This is old, so it's a little bit behind on everything, but it all kind of starts to add up when it comes towards the MJO and this time and the dates. The dates kind of matched up. So 30th of May, you kind of see that rising air, and you can kind of see the Eastern Pacific was looking really bad prior to today, and it's gonna start getting better by basically the last days of May. So like I said, maybe a week or so, you will start to get something interesting in the Eastern Pacific because you see a lot of that kind of suppressed convection there. But as you see, it starts to make its way eastward into the northern Atlantic and tropical Atlantic, and as you can see, you start to get some more rising, very slight rising air because that's not part of the MJO. That's just a general tropical wave, so you're probably gonna get you may get a named storm in the Pacific probably by the next week and a half or so because that suppressed convection makes its way towards the Atlantic, and you start to get some better atmospheric conditions beyond the atmosphere. Here's the overall tropical vertical shear forecast. So you can kind of see we are right along here, something like that. So as you can tell, your vertical shear and your trade winds are going to be at their peak in basically winter, which kind of makes sense. But as we now kind of get towards this deeper, as we get deeper into the warm season, and as we continue to stay pretty consistent with this La Nina, you're going to start to see that your trade winds and your vertical shear are going to significantly die down again, as well as this is just a general thing. Even if there is an El Nino this year, your shear will still decrease compared toward the winter because obviously your jet stream will move up further polarward, so you're not going to be seeing significant trade winds or significant kind of flows of stream when it comes to the overall jet stream. However, you still see your polar jet stream, but you won't have as much interference as you would see in winter, obviously. So as we go towards now in the next few months, we are going to start getting our minimal shear values here and your minimal trade winds and vertical shear. So definitely we'll start getting interesting. So as we now get towards really June, I think June will be pretty dead of a month, which it typically is in general. I think we average like a storm per June. That's the average. I think we will get one in June. I think it'll be early June rather than late June. That's just my view on it. And then I think eventually as we go towards the peak season, it'll obviously amplify. So I think we're missing a slow start to the season, and then it'll amplify. And that's just how I see it there. I need time for the trade winds to actually die down. They're still pretty amplified as you see that suppressed convection and higher pressure is starting to develop along the Atlantic right now. So you're going to get higher trade winds. So I think it'll take a few weeks to kind of die down and have everything good enough to have a early season storm. You have to have obviously the SAL cooperating, you have to have the SSTs cooperating, you have to have everything cooperating. So I think it'll take a few weeks to get our first storm here. I think we will get our first storm of the year by second week of June. And then last thing I want to look at is the overall ocean heat content. This is a natural process as the warm season, so none of this is really going to affect anything. But as long as we kind of stay pretty dead this June, I think we'll accumulate a good amount of ocean heat content for July and then eventually the peak season. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.